What's happening? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the channel. I have something new for you today. Dogs. We are going to talk dogs. As my channel is really focused on a part of my life and what it was like, I'm going to talk about dogs, which has been the biggest part of my life. I'm going to start posting videos about how to train dogs, how to care for dogs. I have an extensive amount of experience in this field. In this video right here, I'm going to explain that experience to you before I get into how to train a dog. This way you realize that I know what I'm speaking about. I'll post some pictures and maybe some videos for you along the way. And hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully you learn something. Any questions that anyone has, all they have to do is ask me in the comments or contact me through the Gmail. I will get back to every single person and answer everyone. I promise you that. So dogs have been a massive, massive passion of mine since I'm a very young child. I was first introduced to a man who trained war dogs when I was about 12 years old. He had trained dogs for the Vietnam War, and he trained dogs in the method of something called Schutzhund, which means protection dog. And so we are talking about a professional dog trainer that I was exposed to at a very young age, and I fell in love immediately because I always had a love for dogs since I was a small child. And once I found someone that knew how to train them, I became addicted, and I would go to this man's house every single day of my life. And throughout my life, I would work on various dog kennels. I would work inside of animal hospitals and assist a veterinarian when I became a teenager. I would train dogs inside of the prison system in a program called Puppies Behind Bars. I've trained hundreds of dogs in my life, and I've trained them in basic obedience. I've trained them in EDC, explosive detection canine. I have trained felony apprehension dogs, and there are all different methods and all different ways that you could train dogs. I find that most people tell me, oh, Fish, I had this dog trainer and he told me this and he didn't do any good. And I had another dog trainer. It's like these days, anyone can think they're a dog trainer. I won't sit here and say that I'm the best in the whole world. Of course, I'm not. Nobody is really, well, someone is the best in the world, but I'm not the best in the world. But what I do have is hundreds of dogs trained under my belt. And most people have not been exposed to a professionally trained dog. Unless you've seen a dog that's really in the military, a dog that's in law enforcement, a dog that competes in some type of competition, you've only then been exposed to dogs that were trained by laymen in the field. People who think they know a little bit about training dogs. To give you an example about the difference of a professionally trained dog, we'll use a law enforcement dog as an example. Let's take a fighter. If any of you heard of Evander Holyfield, the professional boxer, Evander Holyfield. This is the difference between a crazy dog and a trained dog, right? Evander Holyfield has the capability of knocking a man out anytime he wants, but he doesn't walk around society doing that because he's a trained professional. So you can walk up to Evander Holyfield and he's not going to just punch you in the face. Right? You could have a conversation with him. You can touch him if he lets you, and that's the way it is with a professionally trained dog. The dog has a capability of doing something, right? But he only does it when told. Okay. And so when we're talking about a professionally trained dog, to give you an example, I could take my dog into Manhattan during rush hour with no leash on if I desired, and walk through the streets of Manhattan through a million people and not have to look down, and my dog is going to be against my knee. I can tell my dog to sit down on the corner in Manhattan, and then I can leave him there off the leash and go cross the street, and the dog will sit there until I tell him to move. This is a trained dog. This is an obedient dog, right? And one thing about dog training is that it takes commitment and it takes time. You can't just think it's a living animal and it has feelings and emotions. It also has its own personality, and you can't just think that you're going to spend 5 minutes with a dog and he's going to listen to you. So it does take a lot of patience. So I'm going to have a little dog training series set of videos where I explain things, but as I said, my experience is pretty extensive. I have a great deal of time in the dog world. And my favorite part of it, the truth was felony apprehension, was protection dogs. I love training protection dogs.
Ready? Get him, get him. Oh, okay, you didn't hold it. Look at the way he's biting. Look at this, George. Come here. Come here. Look at the grip on this dog. Hold on.
I was the agitator for many, many years. Where I wore the bite suit and agitated the dogs, which was a part of training protection dogs. My body has paid the price: 2 shoulder surgeries, much more than that, broken rib cages, puncture holes in my arms, surgery on my rotator cuff because the dog ripped my rotator cuff when he knocked me down, a dog grabbing me by the groin. I mean, a Rottweiler. I've been through I've been through a lot with dogs. Sit. Good sit. And down. Down. Good down. Good down. Good boy. Good boy. Okay. Up. 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 Good. Up. Good boy. Good boy. Come on. Heel. Come on. Heel. Heel. And sit. Sit. Good boy. But I say, if you don't know anything about kids and dogs, you don't know anything about life. Kids and dogs are two of the most beautiful things on this planet Earth, in my opinion. And I think if you don't know anything about them, then you don't know anything about life. So I'll explain a lot about the dog world. I will go through things of how to pick the breed that's right for you. How to house train a dog, how to obedience train a dog. I've trained dogs to open doors for wounded war veterans. I've trained dogs to turn on every light in the house. I've trained dogs to undress people. I've trained dogs to find narcotics. I've trained dogs in basic obedience. I've trained dogs to apprehend felons. So I have many, many years in this field, and it's a true passion of mine, something I truly love. It's the reason why I have 6 little dogs right now. Those are my babies. To give you an example, we'll get right into picking a breed of dog. There's many things that you should take into account when you are going to pick a breed, okay? And the breed that's right for you. Dogs were bred and created to have inherit certain genetic traits. Like you can take a Jack Russell, for example. If you get a Jack Russell and you put him in your yard, expect him to dig holes. You know what I mean? A Jack Russell is no dog. You would think because a Jack Russell is a small dog, he'd be great for an apartment. Well, an apartment would be torture for a Jack Russell because a Jack Russell is an extremely hyper dog. He likes to run. He needs to play. So locking him up in an apartment will really cause some mental health issues or behavioral issues inside of the dog, confining him in such a tight spot. So many people with a small apartment say, oh, Jack Russell would be great. It wouldn't be great. Then you can take a dog like a Great Dane and say, oh my God, you need a big house for a Great Dane. You actually don't need a big house for a Great Dane. Why? Because a Great Dane, if you have an 8-bedroom house, he won't even see 7 of the bedrooms. Great Danes, when they're in the house, they lay down, right? It's not a bed, just because he's so huge, it's not torture to put him in a smaller environment. Even though I don't recommend it, it's not as torturous for him because when a Great Dane is in the house, he's a laid back dog. You know what I mean? I should even use like a bull mastiff as an example. These dogs are more laid back, but they need to be walked every day. They need to get out of the house. They need their exercise. But when they're in the house, they don't do much. So learning what the dog was designed to do is very important. If you're going to get a Labrador, Labradors, you need to be prepared to walk that dog every day. Right? Why do you need a Labrador to walk them every day? Because they have a tendency to get obese. They have a tendency to gain a lot of weight. So it's important that if you're going to purchase a dog like a Labrador, that you make sure he gets his proper exercise every day. If you're going to get a Belgian Shepherd or a Dutch Shepherd, if you get a dog like that, you basically have to stop your life and focus on that dog, because a Belgian Shepherd or a Dutch Shepherd is such high energy. He needs to be stimulated and challenged every day and for several hours a day. And if you can't take your time to attend to a dog like a Belgian Shepherd or a Dutch Shepherd, then you shouldn't get one. That's also not a dog for a first time dog owner. Right? That's a dog that takes someone who knows a little bit about dog training, who knows a little bit about handling dogs, right? Because that dog that dog is going to challenge you, right? And these are the dogs that they use in the military, the Belgian Shepherds. That's the dog that they sent in to go get Osama bin Laden when they pushed him out of a helicopter with a camera on his head and a parachute. So it pick your breed carefully. You don't pick a breed because he's cute. You have to take health issues into account. You have to take your bank account into account. Will you be able to afford this dog? If you get a dog like an English bulldog, know that that dog's not going to do anything. If you want to take your dog on long walks, don't get an English bulldog, because he can't breathe properly because of his smushed in face. He's going to snore at night. So I'm giving you examples of really taking the time to pick a breed that fits your lifestyle, is compatible with your knowledge on dogs. And then once you pick a breed, then we could get into the training part. And the first part I'll get into is house training. We're going to do that in another video. But I just wanted to do a little introduction about my experience with dogs. My experience with dogs is much more extensive than I'm giving you right now. I could go on forever about them. I trained dogs from the age of 12 until the age of 24, which was 10 years. And then I went into the prison system and I trained dogs for another 4 years in the prison system to help wounded war veterans and to use their nose to find explosives. And then when I came home, I trained dogs for another 10 years and had over 50 customers. And I would go to these customers on a daily basis and train their dogs. So it's a passion of mine. And now here we are, you can get the knowledge and the lessons for free. So I wanted to post a little video about what's coming up in the dog training, and I'll post my first video on how to train a dog very soon, and I hope you enjoy. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you're interested in, and that will actually persuade me to go forward with this and do a dog training series. Everybody have a wonderful day and take care.